Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The rain fell in heavy curtains on the narrow alley where Emily, barely 10 years old, dragged her rickety wheelchair. Her breath came in short gasps, her hands numb with cold, and each day seemed heavier than the last. An orphan since she was 5, she lived in a home whose sadness was undisturbed by anything. The other children seemed to find refuge in laughter or play, but for Emily, the world was a succession of closed doors. That day, sitting against a damp wall, she let out a sigh that spoke volumes about her despair. She dreamed of running, of feeling the wind on her face, but her paralyzed leg and small, frail body held her captive. Her deep blue eyes reflected a loneliness that even the city lights couldn't warm. Then, as she turned the corner, a black limousine screeched to a halt. Emily looked up, intrigued but hopeless. A tall, impeccably dressed man stepped out, his presence commanding respect. His calm, penetrating eyes seemed to pierce right through her, understanding the pain she carried. He approached gently, knelt down at her level, and, in an almost sacred silence, uttered a single sentence. "You don't need to walk to change the world, Emily, but today I'm going to show you that you can walk again." Emily's heart leaped. That simple yet powerful phrase resonated within her like a call to life she had almost forgotten. The billionaire reached out, and for the first time in years, Emily felt that a miracle was possible. And so, under the rain and the gray skies of the city, an unexpected hope was born, capable of transforming not only her life, but everything she thought was lost. The rain fell relentlessly on the gray city, beating against the rooftops and cascading down the slippery cobblestones. In a narrow alley, 10-year-old Emily slowly glided her wheelchair across the muddy ground. Each jolt made her numb hands tremble and reminded her of her fragile body. Her gaze, lost in the horizon, reflected the weariness of a child who had learned too soon to live in a loveless world. An orphan for 5 years, she knew loneliness better than comfort. The home where she lived was cold and silent, filled with strict rules and tired faces. The other children seemed to escape into their games or laughter, but for Emily, the world was limited to the walls and locked doors of her small universe. That day, she had ventured further than usual, into an alley she thought she had forgotten. Her shortness of breath betrayed her effort, and every movement reminded her of her disability. She sat down against the damp wall, her hair plastered to her forehead, and let out a sigh. "Another day wasted," she murmured. It was then that an unusual noise made her look up, the screech of brakes. Emily blinked and saw a black limousine pull up in front of her. A tall, elegant man with a stern but strangely reassuring face stepped out. His piercing blue eyes lingered on her, and in that gaze, Emily felt a strange warmth, as if someone finally understood her pain. He knelt before her, without a word, and placed a hand on the armrest of her chair. The rain seemed to have subsided around them, as if suspended in time. Then, calmly, with a voice that resonated directly in Emily's heart, he said, "You don't need to walk to change the world, Emily, but today I'm going to show you that you can walk again." Emily was speechless. The words were simple, but their weight overwhelmed her. For the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of hope illuminate her heart. She timidly raised her hand toward the man's, hesitant, as if accepting a promise she no longer dared to believe possible. The billionaire smiled at him, and in that smile could be read an unwavering certainty: he was going to change his life. And in the persistent rain of the gray city, Emily felt that, perhaps, tomorrow could be different. Perhaps a miracle had just begun. The billionaire slowly straightened up and extended his hand to Emily. His voice, soft but confident, still echoed in the alley. "Come with me, Emily. I'm going to show you something you've never imagined." Emily hesitated for a moment. The streets were cold and muddy, and she knew the disappointments of this world all too well. But something in this man's gaze instilled in her a confidence she had never felt before. She placed her hand in his, frail but determined. The limousine was waiting for her, its doors wide open like an invitation to the unknown. When she settled inside, she was struck by the understated luxury and the warmth that contrasted so sharply with the cold outside. Cream leather seats, soft lighting, and a soothing silence enveloped the space. "My name is Alexander Whitmore," he said, smiling slightly, "and I believe every child deserves a chance to walk towards their future." Emily blinked. The words were simple, but the sincerity they conveyed was palpable. Alexander wasn't there to pretend. He was there to change her life. "But I can't walk," she murmured. "Not yet," replied Alexander, "but you can learn. And I know people who can help you find every step you think you've lost." The limousine took them out of the city to a secluded villa with light-colored walls and an immaculate garden. Every detail seemed designed for comfort and safety. Alexander guided Emily inside and showed her a room fully equipped for rehabilitation, specialized treadmills, parallel bars, and a small area for therapeutic exercises. "Here, you will learn to take one step, then another. And soon, you will be running again," he explained. Emily felt a wave of emotion wash over her. For the first time in years, hope seemed tangible, almost palpable. Alexander wasn't just offering her material resources, he was offering her the chance to believe in herself again. As she looked at the equipment, she understood that this journey would not be easy. But for the first time, she was no longer alone. And somewhere deep inside her, a new feeling was growing, the courage to get back up, literally and symbolically. Alexander knelt once more, and this time his gaze was full of promise. "Emily, every step you take here will be the beginning of a miracle. And I will be there every moment." Emily smiled shyly, but that smile contained more than just hope, it contained the determination of a child ready to take back her life, guided by a man who believed in her. The next morning, Emily woke up with a slight apprehension. Sunlight filtered through the villa's large windows, illuminating the rehabilitation room. Everything seemed unreal, the warmth, the cleanliness, and above all, the possibility of walking. Alexander was already waiting for him, dressed in a simple t-shirt and sports pants, his reassuring smile still present. "Ready for your first step?" he asked softly. Emily nodded, her heart pounding. She sat down in her wheelchair and stared at the parallel bars set up in the center of the room. The idea of standing up frightened her, she hadn't walked for years, and pain, fatigue, and frustration were lurking. "Don't worry, this is Alexander, every step is a victory. Even if you fall, we will get back up together." Emily's assigned therapist, a woman named Claire, entered at that moment. Her warm smile and gentle voice immediately inspired confidence. "Emily, we're going to start slowly. The first step is simply to stand up. I'll be by your side every step of the way." With Claire and Alexander's help, Emily was guided to the parallel bars. Her hands trembled as she gripped the cold metal, her body hesitating as if refusing to obey. The first attempt was a failure, her legs buckled, and she fell back into the chair. A wave of frustration rose within her, threatening to extinguish all hope. "That's normal," said Claire, "look at yourself. You haven't given up. You tried, and that's what counts." Alexander knelt beside Emily, his deep gaze fixed on her. "Every great journey begins with a hesitant step. And today, you just took that first step, even if you fell." Emily took a deep breath, then another. She stood up again, her arms trembling, sweat beading on her forehead. With Claire's help, she took 3 small steps, clumsy but determined. At that moment, a spark ignited in her eyes, the conviction that she could do it. Alexander smiled, almost proudly. "Look what you just did. 3 steps, and this is only the beginning." Emily, breathless but radiant, felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, hope. Every drop of sweat, every tremor, every clumsy step seemed to cement her determination. "I'm going to make it," she murmured, almost to herself. And Alexander, placing a hand on his shoulder, added, "Yes, Emily. And I will be there to help you walk towards every miracle that awaits you." That day, Emily understood that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but that with patience, courage and support, the dream of walking again was no longer impossible. The following days were a mix of pain, effort, and small victories. Emily woke up each morning with growing apprehension. Her aching muscles screamed after years of inactivity, and her body sometimes refused to cooperate. Every movement required extreme concentration and an energy she no longer thought she possessed. That morning, Alexander entered the rehabilitation room with an encouraging smile, but his serious look indicated that he expected something more than just an effort. "Today, Emily, we're going to push it a little further. You're going to take 5 steps in a row." Emily stared at the parallel bars, her heart pounding. 5 steps seemed insurmountable. Memories of past falls and old frustrations flooded her mind. I'm not sure I can," she murmured, her hands trembling on the cold metal. "I know," Alexander replied softly, "but you are stronger than you think. And even if you fall, we will get back up together. Always." With Claire beside her and Alexander in front of her, Emily gripped the bars and took a deep breath. She placed one foot in front of the other, a labored and hesitant, yet determined, movement. The second step made her wobble, and a dull ache shot through her leg. She almost felt like giving up. "One more step," said Claire, her voice soft but firm. Emily closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and took a third step. Then a fourth. Her body trembled with fatigue and pain, but she didn't stop. Finally, the 5th step was taken, clumsy but accomplished. A tear rolled down her cheek, not of sadness, but of relief and pride. Alexander approached, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You see? You can do it. Every effort, every pain, every fall, all of it leads you towards the freedom to walk again." Breathless, Emily looked up at him. In Alexander's eyes, she saw unwavering conviction, an unconditional support she had never known. For the first time in a long time, she felt capable of overcoming her limitations. "I'm going to make it. I have to make it," she murmured with determination. That day, Emily understood that the road ahead would be long and full of challenges, but that she was no longer alone. With Alexander by her side, every pain became a step towards victory, and every step a small miracle in the making. A few weeks later, Emily had made impressive progress. Her steps were becoming more sure, her confidence was growing, and the pain was beginning to give way to her determination. But the road to recovery is never linear. That morning, as she tried to clear a set of wider bars, a misstep sent her tumbling violently backward. Her body hit the ground, and a wave of pain rooted her to the spot. She sobbed, discouraged, her trembling hands gripping the bars as if they were her only safety. "I'll never manage it," she sobbed, her voice breaking with frustration. Alexander knelt calmly beside her. He said nothing at first, letting Emily release her anger and fear. Then, gently, he placed a hand on her shoulder. "Emily, look at me." She looked up, tears still on her cheeks. "Every fall is part of the process. It's not a failure, it's a learning experience. And you are capable of much more than you believe." Emily shook her head. "But I'm in so much pain, what if I can never walk properly again?" Alexander took a deep breath, and his voice became low but comforting. "You know, Emily, I've never met anyone with your courage. You get back up again and again, despite everything. The pain, the fear, the frustration, these are what will forge the strength that is already within you." He then smiled, a gentle smile that nonetheless carried truth. "And one day, you will look back and realize that each fall brought you closer to the freedom of walking fully. But only if you continue." These words struck Emily to the core. She wiped away her tears, took a deep breath, and for the first time since her fall, she felt a flame of determination rekindle. "Okay. I'll try again," she murmured. Alexander helped her to her feet. Her hands were trembling, but this time she wasn't thinking about the pain, only about the goal, to keep moving forward, again and again. She placed one foot in front of the other, then a second, her movements still hesitant but determined. Each step became a small triumph over fear and pain. At the end of the session, exhausted but smiling, Emily collapsed into the wheelchair, her eyes shining. You see, said Alexander, placing his hand on hers, every step, even a difficult one, is a step towards a miracle. And you just took a huge step today. Emily realized he was right. Every fall, every difficulty, every tear was not an end, but the beginning of something greater, the possibility of walking again, and of reclaiming her life. Morning was gently breaking over the villa, bathing the rehabilitation room in a golden light. Emily, still tired from the previous day's exertions, entered the room with a mixture of apprehension and excitement. Today, Alexander had a new idea for her. Today, Emily, he said, his eyes sparkling, you are going to try something new. I will not hold your hands. You will have to walk alone, with only the bars for support. Emily's heart was pounding. Walking alone. The idea seemed both terrifying and exhilarating. Her legs trembled at the thought of bearing her weight, but a new determination shone in her eyes. Claire helped her position herself in front of the bars. Emily took a deep breath, felt the cold metal beneath her hands, and took her first step. Her legs wobbled, her breath caught in her throat, but she continued. A second step, then a third. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. One more step, you're almost there, encouraged Claire. Emily took a fourth step, her muscles screaming in pain, but she smiled. Then a fifth, and finally, a sixth. She had taken 6 steps alone for the first time. Joy burst into her heart like an invisible firework. Alexander approached, his eyes shining with pride. Look at you, Emily. You're walking on your own. You're incredible. Emily burst into laughter, a pure, liberating sound that echoed through the room and made the walls vibrate. For the first time in years, she felt light, capable, free. Her legs, aching but proud, finally belonged to her. I'm walking, she exclaimed, still trembling but euphoric. Alexander smiled at her and placed his hand on her shoulder. And this is just the beginning. Every day, every step, you will become stronger. And soon, you will be able to run, dance, live life to the fullest. For Emily, this moment marked a crucial turning point. Fear had given way to confidence. Pain was no longer an insurmountable obstacle, but proof of her resilience. And Alexander's constant, reassuring voice had shown her that she was never alone in this fight. That day, Emily understood that every step, even the smallest, could be a miracle in itself. And that with courage and determination, she could rewrite her own story. After several weeks of intensive sessions, Emily began to feel a new confidence in her legs. Each step she took was still accompanied by small pains, but the fear was gradually fading, replaced by a childlike excitement. That morning, Alexander had prepared a surprise. He led her to the villa's large garden, a vast and bright space dotted with colorful flowers, majestic trees, and winding paths. The fresh air and the scent of the flowers filled Emily's nostrils. For the first time, she was going to walk freely, away from the rehabilitation bars. Today, Emily, Alexander announced with a smile, you will explore this garden alone. I will be there, but I will not hold your hand. This is your space, your moment. Emily felt her heart race. She took a deep breath, stood tall, and took her first step onto the gravel. The feel of the ground was different from that of the metal bars, but she quickly adapted. One step, then two, and soon she was moving forward with surprising ease. She laughed, surprised by her own strength. The flowers seemed to encourage her, the wind caressed her face as if to celebrate her victory. She stopped in front of a small pond and looked at her reflection in the water, a smiling child, standing, walking alone for the first time. Alexander watched him from afar, a satisfied smile on his lips. You see, Emily? Walking is no longer just exercise, it's freedom. And every step brings you a little closer to the life you deserve. Emily took a few more steps, discovering the sensation of her legs under her control. She felt strong, capable, alive. And as she touched the flowers, felt the wind, and listened to the birds sing, a profound emotion washed over her, gratitude. For Alexander, for Claire, for herself. She realized that rehabilitation was not just a physical battle, but an emotional journey. Each step restored her self-confidence, and with that confidence came the possibility of dreaming again. "Thanks," Emily murmured, her gaze turned towards Alexander. "Thank you for never giving up. You've never been alone, Emily." "And you never will be," he replied, his voice full of warmth. That day, Emily understood that walking meant not just moving her legs, but reclaiming her life, her joy, and her freedom. And for the first time in a long time, she felt the world opening up before her, filled with promise and miracles. The sun was high in the sky, bathing the garden in a warm and comforting light. Emily, having explored several paths the day before, felt ready for a bigger challenge. Alexander then suggested they cross the small wooden bridge that spanned the garden pond. As she took her first step onto the slightly damp wood, a shiver of unease ran through her. The bridge seemed more unstable than it actually was. Her heart pounded in her chest, and the fear of falling almost paralyzed her. "Emily, look at me," said Alexander, kneeling down to his level. "I know it's scary. But fear is just a signal, it tells you that this step is important. You can take it." Emily took a deep breath, her hands gripping the railing tightly. Her mind screamed at her to back down, but her heart reminded her of all the victories she had already achieved. She placed one foot on the bridge, then the other. Her body trembled, but she moved forward. Each step felt both endless and vital. Halfway there, the wood slipped slightly under her shoes. A cry of fear escaped her, but Alexander, beside her, calmly supported her. "You are capable. You have taken so many steps before this one. Don't let fear decide for you." Emily took another breath, closed her eyes for a moment, then continued. Her legs, aching but strong, carried her to the other side. When she placed her last foot on firm ground, a triumphant laugh escaped her throat. She had overcome her fear. Alexander smiled, both proud and moved. "You see? Even the greatest fear can be overcome. And every time you overcome it, you become stronger than ever." Emily felt a wave of pride and confidence wash over her. She had learned that walking was not just a physical act, but an inner journey. Each step on the bridge was a metaphor. Fear could slow her down, make her falter, but it could no longer stop her. That night, as she lay in bed, Emily thought about everything she had accomplished. For the first time, she felt in control of her body and her life. Fear still existed, but she had discovered something more powerful: courage. The weeks passed, and Emily had transformed every effort into a victory. Her steps became more sure, faster, and her confidence radiated in every movement. Walking was no longer just a goal, it had become a passion, a celebration of newfound freedom. One morning, Alexander took her to a bright room filled with various equipment, treadmills, small obstacles, and even a space for dancing. Emily looked at him with astonished eyes. "What is this?" she asked, curious and excited. "This is for you, Emily," replied Alexander, a warm smile on his lips. "Now that you can walk on your own, it's time to dream even bigger. Here, you can learn to run, jump, dance, to explore everything you thought was impossible." Emily felt her heart leap. Dancing, running, these were things she had never dared to imagine. She took a deep breath and placed a first step on the mat, then another. The fear of failure, which had long paralyzed her body and mind, seemed to evaporate. "You see, Emily? Everything you thought was lost is right in front of you. And every move you make is proof that you can achieve your dreams." Emily smiled shyly, then set off on a short, impromptu run, laughing with every step. The feeling of freedom was delicious, almost unreal. She felt the power in her legs, the strength in her body, and above all, the confidence that grew with each passing moment. Alexander watched her, proud and moved. He knew that Emily's journey did not end there. She would now discover her own limits, push them back, and dream without fear. "But that's not all," he said then, lowering his voice slightly. "I have a project for you, Emily. Something that will allow you to share your courage and your story with other children like you. But first, you need to be ready, physically and mentally. Emily felt a thrill of excitement and anticipation. She didn't yet know what the project entailed, but the idea that she could help other children, as she had been helped, filled her with new hope. For the first time, she saw herself not only walking and running, but inspiring others with her own strength. That night, as she fell asleep, Emily felt a mixture of gratitude and excitement in her heart. She had regained much more than the ability to walk. She had regained her dreams, her courage, and the certainty that her life could become extraordinary. The sun rose over the villa, bathing the garden in a soft, warm light. Emily, now able to walk, run, and even dance with ease, stood before a small group of children gathered in the garden. Alexander, beside her, smiled proudly. "Today, Emily is going to show you that nothing is impossible," he announced. The children watched her with curiosity and admiration. Some were disabled, others had gone through similar ordeals to Emily's. All of them, in one way or another, had lost some of their self-confidence. Emily took a deep breath and felt everyone's eyes on her. Then, with a radiant smile, she took her first steps in front of them. The rehabilitation bars were no longer needed, each movement was fluid, powerful, full of confidence and grace. She then ran a few meters, laughing with happiness, and finished with a little dance, releasing all the energy and joy she had accumulated during her rehabilitation. The children burst into applause and shouts of joy. Some, their eyes shining, rushed to join her. Emily, holding each one's hand, encouraged them, showing them that every effort, every step, every challenge could be overcome. Alexander watched the scene, moved to tears. His secret plan was finally revealed. It wasn't just about getting Emily to walk, but about giving her the strength and confidence to inspire other children to believe in themselves. "You have accomplished a miracle, Emily," he murmured, placing his hand on her shoulder, "but the real miracle is that you are now passing on this courage to others." Emily smiled, a smile filled with pride and gratitude. She remembered the little girl sitting alone in the rain, shivering in her wheelchair, and realized how much her world had changed. She was no longer a fragile, abandoned child. She had become a source of strength, hope, and light. As the sun continued to shine on the garden, Emily understood something fundamental. Walking alone had been a miracle, but walking to inspire others was a true transformation. She had reclaimed her life, her dreams, and her power to change the world. And for the first time in a long time, she knew that no barrier, no fear, no pain could ever stop her determination. Emily had found her legs, but above all, she had found her heart and mind again, ready to embrace all the miracles to come.